Hello everybody, welcome to the Finishing Consultants webinar on deconstructing the ProMix 2KE. I'm Eric Rainica, I'll be your host today. The presenters are Bill Mellon of Finishing Consultants. Bill has over 40 years of experience in the finishing business. And we have Mike Moe from Graco, and he only has 20 years, so he's got a little bit of catching up to do. But as you can see, we have a lot of experience on the panel today. Before we begin, we're going to do a little housekeeping. We have all your phones muted, but we still welcome your questions and comments. So over on the right side of you, you should see a panel that says Q&A and another one that says chat. You can type your questions or comments in either place, and we'll cover those questions at appropriate times during the presentation. So we'll start today's program with a short but informative presentation, which will be followed by a live demo. But before we do that, we're going to do a little polling question. So you should see a poll, and the question is, do you currently use the ProMix 2KE in your painting process? So please answer the question. We got some questions coming in. I'm only giving you you only got about 5 seconds more to do this. We're on a tight schedule here. There we have. I'm going to share the. Okay, it's giving you a little bit more time to submit, and then I'll share the results. All right. So we have about 21% of the people said they do have a ProMix 2K, 50% said they did not, and the rest did not answer. So we're not sure about them, but we have a pretty good selection of people who do have, and a few that do not. There we go. So fellas, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Good morning. So we're going to talk today about the 2KE, the floor component unit by Graco. It's considered an entry-level machine, but even though it's considered an entry-level machine, it's fully packed with features. It's compact in size, can be placed in many places in your shop or in your spray area. It's flexible and easy to use, good, easy installation. Meter-based systems for up to 3 colors, pump-based systems that cover the full range of pressure ranges from air spray to airless. Proven Graco reliability. Just all in all, even though, like I say, it's considered to be an entry-level machine, it's still fully packed with features. Mike?
All right, so as Bill mentioned, we have a number of different sizes and features for this product. I want to start talking just a little bit about the component level of the 2KE. As you can see, all stainless fluid paths for material compatibilities for a wide range of materials. In fact, we now offer an acid-based system that comes complete by its own part number. Historically, if you've used these products in the past, you had to order special configuration. Now it's by a specific part number for those units. Standard resin and catalyst meters, G3000, however, we do have the ability to change those meters upon material specifications. Compact material volume sizes, what that means is basically we integrate standard sequential integration into a 50 cc integrator to keep the volumes of material down for color changing and flushing. Also have the ability to use 2 guns on this system. We have 2 inputs that we can actually track the pot life of both guns, and we also have the ability to add gun flush boxes to the 2KE. The defining difference on the 2KE with the inputs for guns and gun flush boxes, again, there's 2 available, so we can have up to 2 guns, or we can have a gun and a gun flush box.
So it comes in 2 basic configurations. You have, as far as the power, how we use the unit, where we can use the unit. The standard is an AC unit, 110 volt, plug it in. Actually, you go from 90 volts to 250 volts.
They
But,
said they're not hearing you guys.
but, hear me now? Okay. Yeah, hold on just a minute. Hear me now? Okay. So the AC unit is not intrinsically safe. It has to be put into a safe environment. It can't be in your booth, it can't be in your paint kitchen, anything like that. The second option is a pneumatically operated alternator. With that unit, we can put that right in the booth. We can put it in your mix room, so you can use it right where you need it.
Okay. In addition to that, we also have reporting capabilities with the 2KE. The reporting capabilities are actually two different kinds. One is just display right on the interface, and you can walk up to the unit and write down what your material usage is, or even the fault recovery system. The other is going to be the ability to add a data download kit, so you can go up to the unit with a jump drive, plug the jump drive into the side or to the port, the access port, and actually download data right to that jump drive that you can take over to your laptop. What you're looking at now is just a screenshot of what those would look like. You're seeing an alarm log and a job log. And again, this just gives you an idea of what those reports would look like. Again, to a jump drive, then you take the jump drive to your laptop and just download it to either an Excel or a Word document.
Okay, guys, I think we need to do another sound check here. We've got a couple guys say they can't hear us. You're hearing through yours.
Yes.
So ask them if they can hear us to write into the chat box.
Okay, so if you can hear us talk, would you just send a quick note in the chat box so Eric gets that verified? We're getting some notes that people can't hear us, so let us know, please.
So I just heard Jeff says we can hear fine.
Yeah, I'm getting some feedback from some people that say they can hear as well. So I think
I'm hearing, so Mark Parker cannot hear, and Christopher Schwab cannot hear. So I'm thinking, guys, you may want to try calling in using your phone.
you might want to text that to them because they can't hear you.
Can't hear you, of course. Thank you. I'll do that. Okay, so I think we're.
Also, for those of you who may be having problems with the volume in and out, we are recording and we'll send the link out afterwards.
Okay, so I think we're up to a polling question, right?
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, so here we're going to open the polling question, and the question is, you guys can read the question.
Yeah, the question is how are you currently tracking material data? Manual entry, like we just talked about, if you walk up to the unit, some kind of an electronic capture using 2K equipment, they're not tracking at all, or you're not sure.
Okay, we got a few answers coming in. When you share the results, you can just... Okay, I'm going to share the results. Okay. I didn't get a lot on that. I just got 17% of the people say they're not tracking, and 22% said they're not sure. 61 did not answer, so I'm not sure. They might fall into that not sure category as well. Nobody said they were tracking.
Okay. So a lot of opportunity with the 2KE to automate some tracking.
Okay. Let's talk about the meter-based system for just a minute. It's probably the most popular unit that we sell. We've got many of those out in different industries. Some of the highlights are it's very configurable, even on the entry-level machine. It's be as basic as a single color with a single catalyst, or up to 3 colors with a single catalyst, and we flush both the A and the B side. Up to 4,000 PSI, depending on which pumps you're feeding it with, so we can cover all of the different spray systems. Ratios, up to 30:1, so it's pretty good. 50 cc sequential dosing with an option of 100 cc sequential dosing integrator, and Mike will talk about that for just a second.
Yeah, and I also want to go back to the mix ratio capability as well. Eric, if we could go back to the other slide first, thank you. because we put a note in there about 1% accuracy at the 30 to 1. And it does track to 1% accuracy. Most of the times people will put in their 5% because most materials work just fine at 5%, but the unit will always try to be perfect and will usually operate at that 1% level. All right, and then to get on to the toss over for the sequential dosing standard size, we do have an optional dynamic, and we also have an optional 100 sequential size. The reasons for these two different sizes, one is being for dynamic, for being waterborne materials that require a different style of mixing. And then the 100 sequential CC integrator size is for those materials at wider ratios and higher flow rates, so we can hit bigger dose sizes to make sure we maintain that 1% accuracy. Okay, and then I think on the next slide we're going to talk a little bit on an animation and exactly what's going on. So Eric, we'll have you start that animation up if you would. And for the 2KE, what we do for sequential integration is we open that dispense valve on the base side, and for easy math I'm going to use a 1-to-1 ratio base to catalyst material. But we open the valve on the base side, and we track the volume of material to 25 cc's of base material going into that integrator. Then we shut that valve off, and we open the catalyst valve, and we now sequentially add 25 cc's of catalyst through the center of that integrator, and we end up with material in layers in the integrator body. And we just keep going back and forth, 25 cc's, 25 cc's. Again, that would be a 1-to-1 ratio. For example, if we were at a 4-to-1 ratio, then it would be 40 cc's of base, 10 cc's of catalyst. The benefit of sequential dosing like we do in 2KE is its accuracy. If we over-dispense or under-dispense on one, we can compensate for that on the next one to keep things within the tolerance of the 1%. Okay?
Okay. Now let's talk about the pump-based unit just briefly. It's a standard configuration. You have a pump for the A side and a separate pump for the B side. We do standard flushing, which means that we flush through the meter, or flush through the integrator and the static mixer out to the gun. We do not flush the pumps. Pumps stay in the material. It's available in low pressure 3-to-1 up to 45-to-1 for the high end for the airless use. Moisture sensitive catalysts like polyurethanes, the isocyanates, we have a bellows pump available that we can put on there to eliminate any issues with air contamination or moisture contamination. It also has a mix ratio up to 30-to-1 with an accuracy of about ±2%. And it uses standard dynamic dosing.
Yeah, so let's go to the next animation, and we'll talk a little bit about what's happening with pump-based systems. Oh, and I see we've actually got a animation that we skipped, so we'll go through that, and this is the color change one. On the meter-based system, we can do a color change simply by adding some valves before the meter. And by simply opening a solvent valve and flushing one color from the manifold through the meter out to the gun, we can flush that color out and then select a new valve to load in the new color. Okay, so that's how we manage color change through a meter-based system. All right, so then Eric, if we could go to the animation of the pump-based system. Perfect. Okay. All right, and so the way we manage the pump-based system is similar to the meter base. We're going to open the valve for the base material, and we're going to start flowing base material into the integrator body, and we have linear sensors in the air motors. And as that air motor is moving, we are tracking the distance that that piston is moving and saying so many inches of travel equals so much flow depending on the pump size that we've attached to the motor. Unlike the meter-based system, we use dynamic integration where we keep the base pump open and we open and close the catalyst valve dynamically, stitching, if you will, the catalyst into the free-flowing base material. This would be similar to dynamic and meter-based systems where we use waterborne materials.
Okay. Now the user interface, the control panel or control module, is actually very easy to use. All the functions are controlled through that system. It's pretty intuitive. It's really simple. Once you use it once or twice, it's really simple. It comes with a standard 10-foot cable, usually mounts right on the unit itself. There is an optional 50-foot cable, so you can move it closer to either the entry to the booth or with an IS system into the booth. Standard operating features are spray, purge, standby. You've got all your recipes are in there. All of your configuration is all done right there at the user interface. Easy to change colors. You just select the color or the recipe you want and tell it to go. And we'll show you that in a little bit. It's where you would see the material use and the job number you could put in right there on that user interface.
Okay, so now we're going to do another poll question. And the poll is, how do you manage your preventative maintenance schedules? The poll is open. Tell us if you're not using PM schedules or manual PM calendar or using a proportioner to track, or if you're not sure. Get your vote in. You coming in here. You can be honest. We won't even know who did this, I don't think. We won't tell. Okay, so we just have a few more seconds here that we're giving you to give you a little extra time to get your vote in before I share it. Three more seconds. 2, 1. All right, so we say 5% are not using a PM schedule, 5% are doing it manually, and 5% are doing it using a proportioner. And 21% are not sure, 63 did not give an answer, so maybe they're in one of those categories. Excellent. So we'll move to the next slide.
Okay, so the next slide is talking about maintenance on the 2KE and the efficiency of the maintenance. As Bill mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, that the 2KE is based off of proven technology. Proven technology being equipment that we've used in our other proportioning product line, such as the cartridge-style fluid valve. It's very easy to service. You can see on the presentation the threaded components screw right into a bonnet on the manifold. So in order to service this valve, it's an easy spin it off, service it, spin it back on. One of the nice features of the 2KE is the ability to track maintenance, and we'll show you in a little bit some of the reminders, but we can track how many times that valve is opening and closing, so we can send out maintenance reminders that after so many millions of cycles, it may be time to think about replacing the U-cup seals in those valves. The other bullet point we talk about here is easy access to fluid components. We keep everything on the outside. We don't put anything down in behind any shields, so it's very easy to get to and service. And we'll point that out during the live demo when we do a component identification here shortly.
Okay, so we mentioned earlier that there was several different configurations to the 2KE. This slide will kind of go over that. On the far left, you've got the power, which is, you either plug it in, the 110, or you have the IS or it's called non-IS or IS systems. And if you move across to the right, you go through high and low pressure. The meter-based system is good for high and low pressure. It's one system, and then going over to the right from there, you've got low pressure 3-to-1s, and then we can match the pump to your material and what pressures you need to spray that material effectively up to 45-to-1. You've also got numbers or part numbers in here for USB or non-USB, so you can download that your usage log very simply. Okay.
Okay, so in the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the accessories that you can get with the 2KE, and obviously some of it, we won't roll through it because it stands and things like that. But the USB kit that we talked about for data download is a nice accessory. The other thing I like to talk about is the color expansion. As Bill mentioned, you can order these systems as a pump base or a meter base, and the meter base comes as a single color or a 3-color system. However, if you order a single color system and down the road in the future you want to expand your production, you can order an expansion kit and move from a 1 to a 3 color by simply adding some hardware, and the software is already resident within the system. So we also have different meters. Not all materials are equal. Some materials don't like the G3000 because of shear characteristics, so we do offer helical style meters and Coriolis style meters as well.
Solvent meters as well.
Correct, solvent meters as well. Okay.
Slide. Okay, so this slide, I just wanted to kind of cover real quickly some of the industries that we've actually put these units in. You've got architectural manufacturing like moldings, windows, people like that. We've got several units in there. Transportation, cabinet shops. With the acid catalyst capability of the unit now, we have several cabinet shops that have used these machines. Trailer manufacturers for undercoater and finished materials on the trailer itself, as well as heavy equipment, whether it be big tractors or there again, large trailers. So we've got these machines already in place in many, many different applications.
So, Bill, as we're talking about the applications, I'd like to try and put the 2KE into perspective of what type of application it fits in, not so much industry, but what their usage is. 2KE is an entry-level system, typically used in those applications where there's not as many colors.
Correct. Yeah. Usually it's you'll see a compatible primer and top coat, or they'll have a separate unit for different top coats. So they have different colored top coats that they're using primarily.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Okay, and now we do another polling question. So the question is, what industry are your current paint operations in? Wood, metal, plastic, aerospace, or other? So go ahead and get your vote in after putting this together. A few more seconds here. You got a few more seconds to get your vote in. Move the camera while we're doing this. Okay. All right, so it looks like we got about 5% in the wood market, 16% in metal, no one in plastic, 11% in aerospace, and 21% in other. And the other half are giving no answer. I know some of you are probably distributors or something like that, so you may not want to answer this one, so I appreciate that. So there you go, guys.
Okay. I think we're going to move to the live demo now. And we're going to start by doing a component identification. Actually, I think you were down okay on the bottom there. Perfect.
Okay, that's where we want to be.
Yeah, and I don't know if you can see up here yet, or if we're just down in the fluid section.
The fluid. You want me to get up there? I can do that.
So this is the interface that Bill mentioned in the presentation a little bit ago, and we're going to go into detail with this in just a little bit, but you can see it's hanging on the front of the cabinet. There is a panel behind it where we put the rack. You can mount this outside of the front of the 2KE on a wall, but keep in mind, if it's not intrinsically safe, this does need to stay out of the booth or the hazardous area. All right, so we'll go ahead and move down, Eric. We'll point out some of the other components here, and I'm just going to start on the outside edges. What you're seeing here, this is a meter-based system, 3-color single catalyst. So on this side is going to be our 3 base colors with the solvent valve. On this side is going to be the catalyst with another solvent valve so we can flush from both sides. Across the front here is our air controls. And then we have meters for both the A and the B components. These are our standard G3000. These meters work typically with 95% of the materials that we see this unit sold into. And then in the middle, we can see this is our mix manifold here. The 2 materials come together. There is some check valves in these manifolds that will stop any cross-contamination. then the integrator body sitting behind the mix tube, and then of course off to your gun through the fluid line. I do have a regulator on the outbound side, and then from there off to the gun. On this one, we have an accessory of the gun flush box, which was something we didn't talk about on the accessory page. The gun flush box is typically used to take the operator out of the equation of color change or flushing to ensure that those functions happen properly. The other benefit to the gun flush box is a safety feature. During purge sequences, we don't want the atomizing air on, especially if we're using electrostatic guns where we're using air to drive the electrostatics. That gun flush box will shut the atomizing air and the turbine air off to reduce any risk of electrostatics and solvents. Okay? All right, with that, I'm going to go ahead and, Eric, we're going to move back up to the controller, and we're going to start taking a tour of the controls.
Okay, so this is your basic spray screen, the screen you're seeing now, and from here we can tell it to spray, be in standby, purge the gun, and we can go back to the home screen. If we scroll over to the right, from there, we go to the batch dispense function. It's kind of unique to this machine, it's 2KE, in that if you need to do a touch-up, you need to have someone do touch-up, you can actually tell the machine to the next step at 946 cc's, which is a quart. You can dispense up to a gallon just by telling it the amount you want, hitting the start button, and it will dispense that then into the container that you're dispensing into. If you go to the right from there, this is the usage screen, and you'll see A1, A2, A3. It'll track all three of the base colors. It'll track the catalyst. The top number is your current usage. The little number below that is the grand total. We can reset the usage by job. The grand total is not resettable. It also then tracks how much material we've used to load the machine. And the next screen is the job log. We can either put a job, you can manually put a job number in here, or you can put an operator number in here so we can track how much your operator sprays in a day or how much you use on a particular job. That's the basic screen there. And then from there, we can go to, Mike will talk more about these screens, we go to the systems pages, and then Mike.
Okay, so what we're looking at now is basically the screens where we go in and program the system for the hardware and the recipes that we're using. This can be password protected, so those folks that you don't want to give access to these screens, we can keep them locked out. What you're seeing, first of all, is software revs. This is a nice screen to be able to get to, so if you have questions about your program or your product, when you call into Finishing Consultants, you might want to go out and look at what software revs you have so you can tell those folks over at Finishing Consultants what model and what level of software you have. On the bottom left, beneath the first yellow button, I'm going to go ahead and push that, and that's going to be the config files. And the config files basically sets up what type of hardware you have. This is icon base for meters, and then beneath that is what size the integrator is. Over to the right is going to be gun flush box, guns, and recipes. So basically this is where you tell the system what kind of hardware is associated to this particular unit. If I move over to the right, this is a screen that we use to tell the system how long the hose length is from the integrator to the gun and what the diameter is. The very nice feature about this is when you input that information, the 2KE automatically calculates what the volumes are in the system for tracking pot life and for doing fill sequences. So you don't have to calculate those numbers to get accurate fills or accurate pot lives. The next page is basically a page for month, day, time information, as well as the data download language selection. If you haven't noticed yet, there is no language on these screens. This is an icon-based system, which makes it quite simple for worldwide distribution. Beneath that is going to be the passcode. Right now I have it set to 0. If we were to change that and put a number in there, you would not be able to access any of these screens we're talking about right now without entering that information. And then the bottom right is the backlight display. If this unit doesn't see any keystrokes within so many minutes, the lights on the display will go out. 0 renders it just on all the time. This is just a screen to tell you what we're going to display in. Right now we're in feet or gallons. We could ultimately change that to the metric system. And then that wraps back around to the first screen. So that's our configure file. I'm going to hit my home screen, and that takes me back to that front page. And if I go to the next one, that's my recipe screen. We have 3 colors associated with this unit, the first one being color 0, which is an end-of-the-day flush sequence. So if I enter 0, I can put a very aggressive flush sequence in here to make sure the system is good and clean at the end of a production run. If I go to the next page, that's where I input recipe 1 for color valve 1, what the ratio is, what the pot life is, and what the tolerance is. Associated to that recipe is going to be a purge sequence for that recipe. So we give you the ability to program a purge sequence associated to the recipe, as well as a purge sequence that all recipes will associate to at the end of production. And as I move forward, we just move into recipe 2, purge sequence for recipe 2, recipe 3, purge sequence for recipe 3, and then looping back to 0. Again, with my home screen, the next screen is going to be maintenance reminders, and this is where we can go in and set how many times we want those valves to open and close before we send a maintenance reminder, or how many gallons or liters of material are going to travel through the system before we send a maintenance reminder to perform a calibration test. All right, and speaking of calibration tests, that's the last icon. This is where we go in and we can perform a meter or pump calibration to make sure that the system is actually outputting the volume that it thinks it's outputting. This is something that we recommend is done at least every 30 days. All right, and then with that, I'm just going to go back to our main screen, and I believe the next function is a live demo. Is that correct, Phil?
Yep. So what we're going to do now is we're going to show you how to load the system, change the color, and flush the system at the end of the day. So you just hit the icon for this spray, and that gets us to the main screen. The up or down buttons over on this side, on the right-hand side of the controller. If we move up or down, you'll see the number change here to 1. All we do now is we hit the button. Be sure that the gun, if you have a gun flush box, be sure it's in the gun flush box and the box is closed. Hit enter in the machine. Well, you have to do it within a certain amount of time where it defaults back to 0. Hit enter, and you'll hear the unit start to go through the sequence.
Now this sequence, as we mentioned in the config file, is dependent on the line length and diameter of your hose.
So luckily, for demonstration purposes, it's a small length of hose, so it won't take it very long. You'll notice that the icon is flashing. That means that it's in process of going through a function you've asked it to do. And then when it completes that function, it'll stop flashing and show as being in standby. Like that. Now, if you were ready to spray, you would simply hit the spray icon, remove the gun from the gun flush box, and start spraying your material. When you're done, or when you want to change colors, what we do is we put the unit back in standby, hit the standby button, select the color you want to go to, hit the enter button, and because we have that flush sequence already programmed into the unit, it will go through that flush sequence and then load the second color, the new color. This is what it's doing now. Again, you'll see that the icon is flashing. Now, the other big advantage to having the gun flush box is while it's going through this, or at the end of the day, while it's flushing, your operator can be doing other things. You can be picking up tape or cleaning the booth or whatnot. It's also, we always try to train people that if they have a gun flush box, the gun is in one of two places. It's in your hand or it's inside this gun flush box. That way, if he gets called away and we hit the pot life, it will automatically dump and clean that system out. And now we're ready to spray the next color. You're done with production for the day. You simply go here and we pick recipe 0 and hit enter. It will go through that last aggressive flush that Mike talked about a minute ago, and then we're done. So from this point, the operator is really done. He just has to be sure it completes the sequence.
Okay, so any other questions? Okay, this is we're ready to start taking questions now. So type them into the chat or the Q&A pod, and let's see what we have here. So we have one question here that says, please explain why we can't put a 2KE in the spray booth.
In the standard, what we call a standard configuration with 110 volt, there's the capability that you could possibly have an arc or a spark when they're plugging it in or unplugging it. When you have vapors inside the booth, you could have a fire. So unless it's listed as and certified as an intrinsically safe unit, it should never be placed in a hazardous area.
Okay. So type your questions in the chat or the Q&A panel, and we'll go to the next one here. It says, this customer says the material is not based on a ratio. He says his is 3% catalyst to base. Can you use this system?
At 3%, that's a little under what the system can do. 3% is a little under 30, is a little above 30 to 1. So what we recommend that you do is work with your material supplier, and they can change the catalyst. Either they can reduce the catalyst with something, or they can change the catalyst to get within that unit. All manufacturers that I've worked with in the last several years have the capability of using these machines.
So I'd like to add to that as well. So some people get a little confused as to percentages and ratios, and if they have trouble making that connection, they can always reach out to your group, and
sure,
you can help them figure out what that percentage is. Yep. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah. In addition, one other thing I'd like to mention is that while this unit is only good to 30 to 1 or close to 3%, if material manufacturers won't or can't change the formulation, we do have other products we can offer, which we're going to do in future webinars.
Correct.
All right, so I'm going to do a close here. If you want to get your question in, please type it in. So question here is, why is the pump-based system considered a single color system, not a multicolor system? Can I do a color change?
You can, and it can be used as a multicolor system. It now becomes a function of how much material are you going to waste and how much time you're going to take. Changing the color here, all we're doing is we're flushing this from here out, and it's done right at the block. If you go to a pump-based system, you physically have to take the pickup tube out of the material you're spraying, put it into solvent, clean it, run that solvent all the way through and flush the pump out, and then reload everything again. So it can be done, but it's very time-intensive, and it's not an efficient use of solvent.
Okay, another question here is, what is the price range of the various models, and do you recommend distributor support services to install and train staff?
Price ranges, the best thing, because we don't know exactly what your situation is or what your requirements are, is to get a hold of one of our sales reps or call our office in Seattle, and we'll give you the number in just a moment, so we can be sure we match the correct equipment with what you need. And what was the last half of that?
Otherwise, do you recommend distributor support services to install and train the staff?
Typically, yes, because even though it's an entry-level machine, we still want to be sure you have a full understanding of all the screens and how to program the machine and how to take your basic care of it. Absolutely.
Okay, I wanted to get you anybody needs the phone numbers that Bill just mentioned or how to contact, there's some of the contact information.
Yeah, please, if you have any questions or you want further information, either call our office at 425-743-9999 or get a hold of your local representative either in Idaho, Nevada, Washington, Oregon. We cover the whole West Coast, California. We're available to help you both with the ROI and answering any questions you may have.
Okay. Well, I think that wraps up our questions for now. So the next thing I want to say is, well, thank you. First of all, thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation and for your demo, and thank you all on the webinar for your attendance and participation. We are going to do another one, so you can see the date right there. It's going to be Tuesday, July 10th. It's going to be at 9 a.m. Pacific time, and this is going to be on the next level for process control for your finishing operation, and that will be the ProMix 2KS. So make sure you mark your calendar and be ready to attend that. We'll see you again for that. So other than that, I think it's a wrap, guys. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend. Fishing open here in Minnesota. I don't know what's going on the West Coast, but I'm sure you got something equally fun.
Always.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you again. Bye.
The leader.